Now, let us talk about textures. Texture is a very important element in any digital artwork, even in Corel Painter. We need texture to make our work look like a real traditional painting, and also not to make our work look smooth and artificial, as this is usually the case in most digital painting out there. In this tutorial, I am going to open an earlier unfinished version of this portrait, and you will observe that there are almost no textures on it. In this case, even a non-artist will understand that this image was made using a computer. And that is the reason most digital drawings out there look artificial. When we add textures of different materials, scuffs, cracks, or maybe some dust to our work, we want to make the work look so natural that even when we zoom in on it, it should feel like we can touch it with your fingers. Most of all, it should also be pleasant to our eyes. Therefore, texture is a very important element in our work. Without wasting much time, let me show you how to implement these textures, and at the same time be able to work with it. Before we fully begin, I will tell you about the paper texture parameters that we can change or adjust in this process, and there are as follows. The angle, this set the angle of the paper texture. The scale, this set the scale of the paper texture. The more we increase the slide values, the more the texture stretches across the image. The contrast, this sets contrast of paper textures. The brightness, this sets the brightness of the paper texture. By clicking on this invert icon, we can invert or toggle the paper texture. Also, there is this direction icon I usually use when working with volumetric brushes. Now, let us look at some aspects of working with textures. Take for example the texture brush, which is in the drawing brushes category. Let us choose some texture. Let's say a texture with cracks. But before then, let's look at the textures that I have already installed here. They are paper texture. These include default paper textures. Dust, it is the texture of dust and small scratches. Vintage textures, there are include varieties of designs and patterns, and other interesting elements. Next is the My Category textures. In a moment from now, you will see what it was created for. Paper, various paper textures are collected here. Canvas, is basically contains canvas textures. Then follows the cracks, dirt and scratches category, which contains varieties of cracks, dirt and scratches, which are also very interesting to add to our work. Next is the oil group. Here it contains the textures of simple oil, oil paint and so on. So, let us grab our texture brush. We have already chosen the texture we want. So, we will now apply this texture on our portrait. In applying this texture, we will use a color that we already have and a picture, and impose our cracks where it will be most interesting. Now go to the Impasto brush category and select the brush volumetric texture. Then go ahead to add small amount of volume to the cracks. Next, We then select the Detail Soft Impasto brush to highlight some of the cracked details. To soften the sharp details of the volume, we use the smooth Impasto brush. Once again, let us select the texture brush and add more brightly expressed details to the painting. As you can see, we have slowly transformed the portrait. Now you should be able to apply a texture to your own paintings. And if this technique is applied layer by layer, it will make your work more beautiful and interesting. Now let me show you how to add your own textures to the library.